Hello, welcome. Just watching the highlights of the Microphonic Fools recent storm cyclone footage. Um, Pretty exciting. Just sitting here watching an imaginary hockey team play a Swiss team, I do believe. No, Czech, sorry. And thinking about my little series I've started called Where Not to Start. Somebody comes up and says, "Yeah, I've heard of this band. What's a good album by them?" And what this is based on where I in my studies and research and stuff. Most people say, "Oh yeah, this band you should start with this." The first album that always gets mentioned. And my band for today is a band I love a lot, Wire. Where not to start with Wire? Well, where not to start with Wire? The obvious place that gets mentioned all the time is their very first record, Pink Flag. Now, Pink Flag's a pretty damn good record. And in a lot of ways, it's their best record. But it's very much a product of its time. It's a 77 punk rock record, but very arty. A lot of people call them Punk Floyd. But their first record is raw. It's raw. Guitar, bass, drums, Colin Newman screaming his head off. Some great songs on it, but it's not the place you'll get their ethos as well as some of the other records. And there's a few records in the sort of what they would call, I guess, the middle period. The Manscaped. That's a bad record to start with because they were using drum machines and they kind of almost turned into a synthy techno mute band, but they were always just a little bit oddball, which is one of the things I love about them. And they always rocked out at some point. Now, I like Wire enough. They're one of the few bands I've seen twice. They're one of the few bands I've left the island to see twice. I saw them when the first time they were touring this record of theirs called The Ideal Copy, which was their return to action after a hiatus. And one of the things about Wire makes them tough to sort of sum up is they've really had several eras. And there was the first era, what was some of us call the Harvest era. They got signed to EMI, they were on Harvest. Everybody called them Punk Floyd because they were on Harvest. They did Pink Flag, which was punky but arty. And then they did a record called Chairs Missing, a way different record. Still very punky and still kind of nasty and abrasive, and God help you, you will never find a vinyl copy of this where the last song on the second side sounds any good at all, because they sort of didn't understand that you can't make a half-hour side with a super loud, ugly song at the end of it and expect it to sound like anything on vinyl. So Chairs Missing actually might well be a good place to start. And failing that, because their first era ended, I don't know, I guess they did a record called 154, which is very arty. A lot of people really like it. I like it less than a lot of people because it sort of bogs down in some kind of, which is almost pretentious kind of twaddle. Not perfect. Great moments. Had a couple of almost hit singles. They had a great single called Map Reference that should have been a hit. It was sort of a hit, I think, in England. Anyway, they split up. They made a really raucous live album for Rough Trade, which is a blast. Like, they were really snotty. And they went and did solo projects. Colin Newman did some great records. Not Two, I think, is a terrific record. Gilbert and Lewis did some crazy ambient, weird noise records, which are actually lots of fun, too. Bruce Gilbert did some stuff. And then, for whatever reasons, I don't really know why, it was decided to reconvene as a band. And as a band, of course, Wire being Wire, they were different. They were like a New Order band. But their drummer only had a kick drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat. And they had, I think, a Casio sampler on a keyboard stand, and then guitars and bass through his million effect pedals. And they did three records in this sort of mode. The first was The Ideal Copy, the tour of which I saw. Really great record. Very modern. There was commercial potential, but they were just a little bit too askew to be totally pop. And each of the records in this era got progressively more kind of synthy, maybe. And the last one basically dispensed with poor old Robert Gotobed, the drummer, and he was replaced by machines. And they even had a brief moment when they were signed to Elektra through Mute in North America. And they changed their name to Weir, W-I-R, because by this point Gotobed was gone. Not really sure why. And they did Weir, which was okay, not great. And then again, they kind of called it quits. And then out of nowhere, I don't even know when this was, they came out of retirement with 3 EPs, Read and Burn. And I'm pretty sure they were all recorded on Colin Newman's coffee table using, modern DAW technology and whatnot. Really rocked hard, great stuff. Saw them on that tour, was it? I'm trying to remember now. In Seattle. And again, they were good. They were great. And they have sort of continued in that vein. Gilbert finally quit after the third Read and Burn EP. They did an LP called Send, which was kind of an amalgamation of stuff. And then they have popped out a record a year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at my count. A fellow named, Graham Sims, has joined to replace Gilbert, and it's pretty much every record is great, atmospheric, synthy rock pop, punky kind of sound. Colin Newman sings about 80% of it. Graham Lewis has this very fruity voice. He sings usually 1 or 2 songs, and they're constantly trying to reinvent themselves. So there's one good one that I really like from the modern era, and the reason I like it is manyfold. First of all, they're really good at looking into their past and sort of reflecting on what's been going on. And this record was that. They took some old songs, and some they hadn't even used, really, and they kind of reimagined them and whatnot. And this is it's their most consistent record, I think. There's, I think, 5 or 6 songs in a row in this that I absolutely love. A+. So if you want to get into the modern wire, this is where you go. If you want to get into what you might want to call classic era wire, you want Chairs Missing. Where is he? He's there. That's a great one. And if you want to get into the New Ordery one, I think really you can't do worse than the Ideal Copy. And that's about as narrowed down as I'm going to get, because these are 3 really different bands in many ways, but with the same ethic. And the ethic is what holds my interest in their craft, which is very considerable. So that's as close as I'm going to get. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like them, and we'll make more of these. I'm trying to find more bands to talk about. Take it easy. We'll talk to you later.